Hey YouTube, today we're going to be looking at a couple Sig Sauer pistols and comparing some of the differences in them. And what we have here in front of us, we have an older P220 and we have a newer P220. And both of these are chambered in the Lord's caliber, 45 ACP. And before we get started, we're going to show you that neither one of these Sig Sauer pistols have anything in them. And we are cleared to make this video. So we're going to go down this little rabbit hole here that a lot of people get into discussions about. And this is sort of like the Glock discussions on finger grooves and the new and old Colt Python discussions and all this. Well, what we have here is a very modern, newer Sig Sauer pistol and a much older Sig Sauer pistol. And I'm going to go as fast as I can, but I have a lot of stuff to cover here. And I want you folks to know that I am not one of these wingnut collectors that get caught up in what year things were manufactured and which one is more collectible and which one is more valuable. That's not me, folks. I'm simply going to show you some of the differences. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up this older one. This is a Sig Sauer P220. Chambered in 45 ACP. Now, if you look right here on the side of the slide, this says P220 made in Germany. And if you look at the barrel real close, it says 45 auto. And on the other side, it just says Sig Sauer and Exeter, New Hampshire. Now, just because this thing says made in Germany doesn't mean it was made in Germany, folks. This thing was more than likely assembled in the United States, but it was made with German-made parts, and that doesn't make any difference to me whatsoever where the gun was made. What matters to me is whether a gun works and whether it is a quality-made product. Now, if you want to know for a fact if something was made in Germany or the actual gun was assembled in Germany, like usually right here on the SIGs, they'll have proof marks. And I used to have one of these that actually said made in West Germany on the slide, and it had proof marks all over it. And I can tell you 100% that was an actual German-made SIG. Now this one I still believe is a German-made SIG. It was just assembled in the United States because there's no proof marks around here. And I'm going to tell you why when I start getting into some of the differences. But these guns came out in 1975. They were produced by Sig Sauer and they were imported into the United States. And there's been a couple little different variants. I think they imported them for Browning and stuff like that, but this is an actual Sig Sauer. Now, what year this thing was made, I have no idea, but here's the serial number if any of the Sig experts want to look it up. My guess is it's probably made in the early 2000s or the late 1990s, somewhere around there, but it was definitely not made as one of the first ones because it would say made in West Germany. Now, some of the differences in these things, in these early Sig Sauer pistols, this thing has what they call a folded slide on it. And what that means is the slide was produced out of carbon steel, and it was folded. This end part here is folded over. This was a stamped carbon steel, and this end piece here is folded over and welded on, and I will show you that here in a second. And it has a separate breech block right here that is actually pinned into the slide. So it's a two-piece slide on it. And this is an alloy frame on this gun, so it's actually pretty light on it. Now, this Sig Sauer here happens to be a double action, single action, and what that means is you can take this gun, you can fire it in double action, or you can fire it in single action. So the correct way to carry this gun is to rack the slide. When you have rounds in it, it will have the hammer back right here, and you can't carry it like that because there's no kind of external safeties on it. So you use this little second lever here, and this is what they call a decocker. It relieves the tension, lowers the hammer down, and it doesn't make contact with the firing pin, and this is how you carry it. So when you draw the gun out, your first initial pull of the trigger will be double action, which is a little heavier. Of course, when the gun fires, it will cycle the slide, and the hammer will be back, and then moving forward, all the rest of the shots will be single action. It'll be a lot lighter trigger pull, which is kind of cool for a carry gun. This particular one just features iron sights, has a white mark here and a white dot up front, and no external extractor on it or anything like that. Pretty cool gun, pretty old gun. This is, I believe this is nickel plating here, and this one's a little unique. Now, I do not use the word rare, folks, because I don't care about things being quote unquote rare. But this one's a little unique because it's all a black frame and it's a nickel plated slide, and all the controls are nickel plated, where it gives it kind of a contrast look. It comes with these plastic grips here, and it says P220 on the side, and on the other side it says Sig Sauer. But this is your basic P220, an older P220, chambered in 45 ACP. This is a full-size gun. Very awesome. Been out since 1975. Now, what I'm going to compare that to is this is a P220 Elite carry, and this is a solid full stainless steel version. This is a lot newer, more modern version of them. And if you see on the side, this is P220, and it does not say made in Germany anywhere on it, and doesn't have any proof marks or anything like that. But this is a 100% American-made modern Sig Sauer P220. Now, I'm going to point out some of the differences, and then we're going to get a little bit deeper into it. I cannot believe the amount of wing nuts that go into dissecting firearms and stuff, and trying to decide what year it was made and which one was better and all that. I'm going to give y'all folks a chance to decide which one you like better, which style you like better, and I'm going to tell you some of the advantages and disadvantages to both. So this one's a lot heavier gun because this whole frame is made out of stainless steel, and so is the slide. And this one features a lot more modern features on it. One of the first things you notice is this has got a shorter slide, and I'm not going to say this one's rare either, but this one went out of production, 6-7 years ago, this carry model. And I think it's one of the worst things that Sig ever did is stop making this gun. I think this is the best, absolute best platform to have, this size, this shorter slide on a full size frame. So the frames are exactly the same size on these, but the slides are a little shorter, and I'll show you side by side here. And if you look, the slide is longer on the full size one, but the frames are exactly the same size. But solid stainless steel construction, and it's got more modern features on it. It's got checkering on the front strap here. That's to give you a better grip during recoil. It's got some checkering here on the front of the trigger guard. It's got a Picatinny rail on it. The other one doesn't have that. It's got your ever best front serrations on it for the people that like to press check. It's got a little bit of extended beaver tail on it. It's got night sights on it, and it does have an external extractor on it. So we're going to get into some of the internal differences here. This particular gun, you're not going to find anywhere for sale. These things, when they stop making these things, they're no longer available. And before I made this video, I looked up on Gunbroker, and I couldn't even find one for sale in the Elite stainless carry model with the shorter slide. And every now and then one of them will pop up, and people grab them up, and they are super expensive. They were not cheap when they were making these things, and they sure aren't cheap now since they're not readily available out to the public. They came with rosewood grips on them. This one's been changed over to these G10 grips made by Hogue, and I think it looks cool because it just gives it a contrast. If you actually look at these side by side, they're complete opposite. This one's got the stainless frame, and which is stainless color with the black trigger and the black controls, and this one's got the black frame with the nickel colored controls. So they're complete opposites, and they both have great contrast in them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, they both take the same kind of magazines. They're 8-round 45 ACP single stack. So each one of them hold a 9-round capacity if you carry one in the chamber. And this one's also a double action, single action. Now makes this one different than the previous one is when you pull this trigger on double action and you cycle the slide, and this one's got what they call the short reset trigger in them. So if you go like this, that's where the reset is, folks. And this one's got a phenomenal trigger. This one by far has a better trigger than the older one. So I'm going to show you a side by side. I'm going to cycle this one. The reset is all the way up here, and then you have a little bit of shake up, and then the trigger goes off. It's still a good trigger. This one here is a lot smoother, and the short reset is right here. There's no shake up whatsoever, and then your second shot goes off. It's not even close here, folks. Not even close. So what we're going to do is we're going to break these down side by side, and I'm going to show you the difference in a German-made folded slide and a more modern US-made milled slide. So we're going to take this thing, we're going to lock the slide open, we're going to make sure there's nothing in it. We're going to take the slide off and set them to the side. Set the frames to the side. We're going to do the same thing to the older one. Make sure it's not loaded. Take the takedown lever down and then slide the slide off. So the first thing we're going to do is look at these frames here. This older one is an alloy frame, so it is super light. I mean, this thing actually feels like a toy on it. So it's made out of some type of alloy, aluminum or something like that, and it's very light. The more modern Elite one is solid stainless steel, and there's a definite weight difference here, folks. And if you look at them side by side, they are very similar in construction, the way they're made. It's just the material made for the frame is stainless on the one on the left and alloy on the right. This one has a longer beaver tail on them than this one. It's just more of a modern stuff, you know, just technology moving along, and people like stuff like that. Now, let's look at the meat and potatoes here, the slides here. Obviously, the one on the left is a lot bigger, is a lot smaller than the one on the right. We're going to take the barrels out of them real quick, and I'm going to start getting into some of the real differences here. We're going to set these barrels aside here, and we're going to start showing you what the differences is. And people really get into these discussions here, folks, and it's kind of crazy. So this is what they call a German-made folded slide. This is made out of carbon steel, and it's stamped steel. And what they did is when they constructed this thing, if you look down real close, I don't know if I can really get in here to show you. Let me see if I can get a light here to show you this. You look way down into this slide here. Let's see if we can get the focus. It's kind of hard sometimes. You'll see that this is welded on here. There's weld marks that go right down in here. So this piece here, when they folded this stamped steel over, they welded this piece onto it after it was assembled. So there's little weld marks that's right down in here. It's actually welded on. So this was actually two separate pieces at one time. And I'll try to show you one more time. There's a bead of weld that goes all the way down in there. So the other differences is this breech block right here that holds the firing pin and all that is a completely separate piece right here that's pinned in. So if you'll notice, here's your slide and here's your breech block. It's completely separate on it, but very well made, very well. German made stuff is usually high quality, but just know, folks, this is a two-piece setup here. This breech block is a completely separate piece from this slide, and it's actually a three-piece because this piece here was added on after it was assembled and welded on. And this is referred to as a German folded slide. Nickel-plated carbon steel. Now, the newer model one is, this is a completely one-piece milled stainless steel. So you don't see any kind of weld marks in here. This is all one piece. This is all milled out, and the breech block is all one piece. So if you look on the top here, you don't see a separate piece at all on it. And this one's also got an external extractor. Now, if you look at them side by side, this one does not have an external extractor, and this one does. And if you look at them on the bottom, you can see that the one on the right here has a separate breech block, and this is all milled one piece. Same thing with the front, all one piece on the one on the left, and this part had the part welded on the end. Now, which one is better? Folks, I don't know how to answer that. It's all personal preference. Now, I know the AK crowd get into the milled versus stamped steel, and they'll all tell you that a milled receiver is a better receiver, but then the same group of people will move into these Sig pistols, and they'll tell you the older folded stamped sides are better than the newer milled ones. I don't know. I'm going to use common sense and tell you if you're looking at it strength wise, these newer ones that probably have more technology, better metal, and anytime you mill something out of one single piece of metal, I would say that would be stronger than pinning something together and then welding a piece on the end. However, I do not think that the Germans, and Sig Sauer has been around a long time, have done anything wrong, and I don't think there's any problem with this at all. I've owned this gun a long time, never had any issues with it, nor do I feel that it's going to come apart at any moment in time. I think it's a really cool gun. I just think it's a different concept than how they do it now. And I think technology has caught up with manufacturing. They've simplified things, and the metal has become better, and this is probably, in my opinion, probably a stronger made firearm than the older one. Now, we're going to put them back together here. We're going to do this on camera, and I usually fumble around a little bit. So they both go back together the same way. You just stick the barrel in, and Sig Sauer has the really cool braided recoil springs and the guide rods. So you just depress this spring down, and it inserts in just like that. Same thing with the older one. Barrel goes in. Kind of like putting their Glock. Even Glock people could take one of these apart and work on it, folks. It's that easy. No tools required. Well, I say that as I fumble around to insert this. I try and keep it in the camera frame, so that's why I struggle a little bit sometimes. So they're both back together. Now, the way you assemble a 220 is the rail goes all the way to the end. So you guide this thing on here like this, slide it all the way back, put the slide stop up, release the takedown lever, and make sure the gun functions correctly, and it does. Same thing with the other one. Guide it on here like this, make it stop, takedown lever, check it for function, and we are good. So the side by side, it's just, it's just a horse of two different colors, and it's all personal preference. Which one's better, I do not know. I like them both. They both shoot absolutely amazing. If you're looking for something that's the older, more original design, might want to go with one of these older ones. It doesn't have any kind of rail on it, though. It's not going to have quite as good of a trigger. It is going to be lighter because it's an alloy frame. So if weight is a thing, this is probably the way to go. But this is more of a traditional, old school, how they made them since 1975. If you want a more modern gun here, a more solid feeling gun, you might want to go with one of these newer ones here, and like this Elite carry here. This gun's much heavier, but it's got a lot of features that the other one doesn't have, like the beaver tail and the checkering and the front serrations and all that. And I'm going to tell you, this one does have a better trigger, and this one does feel like a more quality firearm, just the feel of it alone. But I'm not taking anything away from these old Sigs or anything like that, and this is an awesome gun, and I do love shooting this gun, and I have shot this thing quite a bit. But the feel of it, it does not feel like this solid block of steel here. This one's a lot heavier. This one seems like it's balanced just a little bit better. This one handles recoil a lot better, and it's got a lot more features on it. And I especially like this front strap checkering on them. But side by side, first thing you do is look at the breech block, and you'll see right away that this is an older one, a two-piece folded slide. So I said I was going to do a comparison side by side of these of an older Sig, a quote unquote made in Germany Sig, and it does say made in Germany, but I don't think that to be the case. I think this was assembled in the United States, and this is an older one versus a newer modern one. Both of these are kind of unique, folks, because you don't see many of these ones that have the two-tone with all the controls two-toned and everything like that. These older ones, nothing's rare. You don't see them around. These things are not like collectible, like they're going to be worth $1 million or anything, but this is a little bit of a unique one. You don't see these around as often as the solid black ones. And this one here is a little unique. You don't see these around because they simply stopped making them, and people buy them up because it was a great feel. This short slide and the full size, full stainless. This was absolutely probably the best Sig pistol I think they ever made here, with the whole newer technology ones and all that. But I don't see them around. They were expensive when they were out, and they're super expensive now if you do find one for sale. But anyway, folks, if there's anything I didn't cover, feel free to put it in the comments. I know I drug this out a long time. I just had a lot I wanted to go through with them. But tell me which one you like, the more modern United States made Sigs, or the older German made / German US, whatever you want to call them. But thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.